Moscow. Winter, 1971. Imagine a room where the silence is so heavy it feels physical. A room filled with the smell of old paper, ozone, and a cold, lingering fear. This is the heart of the KGB's archives. For decades, this was the most secure place on Earth. This room held the genetic code of the Soviet Empire. Every betrayal, every double agent, every classified operation that could bring a superpower to its knees. The KGB didn't just build walls here. They built a fortress of bureaucracy. They spent billions of rubles on steel vaults, layers of armed guards, and the most sophisticated surveillance the world had ever seen. They were certain that nothing leaves this room without a direct order from the Kremlin. They believed their secrets were immortal. But they were wrong. While the generals were boasting about their impenetrable security, one man was doing something unthinkable. He wasn't a super spy. He didn't have a gadget from the future. He didn't have a team of commandos. He was an archivist, a mid-level bureaucrat whose job was to organize the chaos. His name was Vasili Mitrokhin, and for nearly 30 years, in the dead of night, Mitrokhin did the most dangerous thing a human being can do. In the Soviet Union, he took a simple pencil and a small notebook, and he began to copy every single line, every single name, every single failure. To understand the scale of this betrayal, you first have to understand the monster that was the KGB. The Soviet Union had built a god of intelligence, a machine that could see through walls and hear whispers across oceans. They had an army of informants in every capital of the world. They had a network that spanned the globe, from the jungles of Latin America to the halls of power in London and Washington. They were the undisputed masters of the shadow war. The West trembled at the thought of the KGB's reach. It was an era of absolute, blinding arrogance. The KGB didn't just believe they were winning, they believed they were invincible. But that is the problem with absolute power. It creates a blind spot the size of a continent. The KGB trusted their system. They trusted their locks. They trusted their guards. They forgot that the most dangerous weapon in a war of secrets is not a nuclear missile or a high-tech interceptor. It is a man who is tired of lying. Vasili Mitrokhin was not a typical traitor. He didn't do it for money. He didn't do it for fame. He did it because he saw the rot from the inside. After the secret speech of Nikita Khrushchev in 1956, the facade began to crack. Mitrokhin saw the lies. He saw the systemic incompetence hidden behind the medals and the parades. He saw the brutal repression of dissidents and the invasion of Czechoslovakia in 1968. He realized that the Soviet system wasn't just flawed, it was incapable of reform. He decided that the only way to truly fight the machine was to steal its memory. For years, Mitrokhin lived a double life that would make a professional spy shudder. By day, he was the loyal servant of the state. He was the man who knew where every folder was hidden. By night, he was the most hunted man in the world, even if the hunters didn't know he existed yet. He spent hours in the archives, copying the most sensitive files of the first chief directorate. He wasn't just stealing a few documents. He was stealing the entire architectural blueprint of Soviet espionage. Imagine the tension of those moments. The sudden sound of a footstep in the hallway. The heavy click of a lock. The flash of a flashlight reflecting off the steel doors. One mistake. One slip of the pencil. One curious colleague asking why he was still in the room. And he would be erased from existence. In the Soviet Union, when the KGB takes you, you don't just die. You vanish. Your records are burned. Your family is silenced. You cease to have ever existed. But Mitrokhin didn't stop. He became obsessed. He was creating a mirror image of the KGB's secret world, one handwritten page at a time. Now, consider the ratio of incompetence. On one side, You have the full might of the Soviet state, thousands of officers, billion-dollar budgets, a global network of terror. On the other side, you have one man, a desk, and a piece of graphite. The KGB was playing a grand game of chess against the West. They were manipulating elections in foreign countries. They were planting fake news in newspapers across Europe. They were using honey traps to blackmail diplomats. They thought they were geniuses. But while they were playing chess, Mitrokhin was stealing the board. He recorded the moments when the KGB was fooled by simple American tricks. He documented the agents who were actually working for the CIA. He wrote down the names of the traitors who were sitting in the highest offices of the Kremlin. He revealed that the KGB had grammed the phone of Henry Kissinger, the U.S. Secretary of State. He detailed how they had infiltrated the most secure defense contractors in America, companies like Boeing, Fairchild, and Lockheed. They were stealing the designs for the Trident and Peacekeeper missiles. They were infiltrating the Tomahawk cruise missile program. The Soviets thought they had the world in a grip of iron, but they didn't even notice that their own archivist was recording their every move. The ultimate humiliation came during the Great Migration. In the late 60s, the KGB headquarters in the Lubyanka building became too crowded. The director, Yuri Andropov, authorized the construction of a new, massive headquarters in Yasenevo. This was a logistical nightmare. 300,000 folders had to be moved. This was Mitrokhin's golden opportunity. As the head of the archives department, Mitrokhin was the man in charge of the move. He was the one cataloging every single document. For 12 years, from 1972 to 1984, the most sensitive secrets of the empire passed through his hands. Under the nose of the director, Vladimir Kryukov, Mitrokhin spent over a decade copying these files. While the KGB was moving their furniture, Mitrokhin was moving their secrets. He didn't keep these notes in a safe. He didn't keep them in a vault. He hid them in the most humble place imaginable, under the floorboards of his dacha, his small country house. Imagine the psychological weight of that. Every time he walked across his living room, he was stepping on the secrets of the empire. He was living on top of a billion-dollar betrayal. The tension reached a breaking point after the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. Mitrokhin knew the window of opportunity was closing. He traveled to Latvia with copies of his material and walked into the American embassy in Riga. This is where the story takes a turn toward the absurd. The CIA officers in Riga looked at the handwritten notes and did the unthinkable. They rejected him. They concluded that the documents were too good to be true. They suspected they were fakes, a dangle operation by the remnants of the KGB to feed them misinformation. The Americans, in their own arrogance, had missed the intelligence jackpot of the century. Mitrokhin didn't give up. He traveled to the British embassy in Vilnius, Lithuania. This time, a young diplomat saw the potential. He didn't see a fake. He saw a gold mine. The MI6 stepped in and organized a daring operation to recover the entire archive. 6 full trunks, 25,000 pages of handwritten notes. The jewels in the crown of Russian intelligence, delivered in old suitcases. When the British intelligence service finally analyzed the material, they were speechless. They didn't just find secrets. They found a map of the KGB's failures. The Mitrokhin Archive revealed that the invincible network was actually a house of cards. It exposed the active measures that the Soviets thought were brilliant but the West found laughable. It revealed the Operation Denver conspiracy, where the KGB spent millions trying to convince the world that the U.S. Army had created the AIDS virus at Fort Detrick. They had used biologists and fake newspapers to spread the lie, all while a man with a pencil was recording the evidence of the deception. The archive exposed the list of shame. It revealed Melita Norwood, a quiet British civil servant who had spent decades handing over nuclear secrets to the Soviets. It revealed the corruption of Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India, who reportedly received suitcases full of cash from the KGB. It exposed the infiltration of the French government, where 35 high-ranking politicians were on the Soviet payroll. But the most terrifying revelation was the stay behind sabotage plans. The Mitrokhin Archive detailed extensive preparations for large-scale sabotage in the event of a hot war. They had identified the most vulnerable points of the port of New York. They had planned the destruction of the Hungry Horse Dam in Montana. They had hidden caches of weapons and explosives across Europe and North America, waiting for the signal to burn the West from the inside. Because of Mitrokhin, the police were able to find and destroy these hidden depots. He didn't just reveal secrets, he saved lives. Think about the arrogance of the Soviet generals in their mahogany offices, smoking cigars and believing they had the world in a grip of iron. They believed their secrets were safe in the steel vaults of Moscow. And all the while, a small notebook was traveling across Europe, exposing every single one of them. The fall of the Soviet Union was not just a political collapse. It was a psychological collapse. The Mitrokhin Archive was the final nail in the coffin. It proved that the system was not just evil, but fundamentally broken. It proved that the sword and shield of the party was actually a blunt instrument. One man, one pencil, one notebook. The KGB spent a lifetime building a wall of secrets. Mitrokhin didn't use a sledgehammer to break it. He used a pencil to write a door and simply walked through it. This is the true story of the Cold War. It wasn't just about nuclear missiles and space races. It was about the war of information. And in that war, the most powerful intelligence agency in history was outsmarted by the simplest tool ever invented. The Soviet Union thought they could control the truth. They thought they could archive the world. But they forgot the most important rule of espionage. The more secrets you have, the more people you need to keep them. And the more people you have, the more likely it is that one of them will decide to write it all down. The archives are now open. The secrets are out. And the legacy of the KGB is not one of power, but of a billion-dollar failure. A failure that started with a single scratch of a pencil on a piece of paper.